Hey everyone! Welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. In Los Angeles, emotions were already running dangerously high, but nothing could have prepared Luna Nozawa for the moment when John Finnegan cornered her in the quiet of the hospital corridor, his face pale, his voice steady yet heavy with a truth so crushing that it immediately stripped the air out of the room, a truth so shocking that Luna's heart skipped and her knees nearly buckled, because what Finn had to say was something that shattered her fragile hope, something that destroyed her picture of the future she had been desperately clinging to, and as the words fell from Finn's lips, Luna felt as though the world stopped spinning, because in that one devastating confession, her entire pregnancy, her every dream of motherhood, and her belief in family were annihilated in seconds. Finn told her that the child she was carrying, the child she thought might finally redeem her in the eyes of Bill Spencer, in the eyes of Lee Finnegan, in the eyes of the entire Spencer family, was not simply a complicated blessing, but a curse born out of something darker, more twisted, more painful than she could have ever imagined, and the weight of that revelation left her breathless, because Finn's confession wasn't just about biology or paternity, it was about legacy, it was about danger, it was about secrets that had been buried under layers of shame, manipulation, and lies. And when he told her that this baby, the one growing inside her, might carry the very same genetic markers of instability, violence, and psychopathy that had run rampant through Sheila Carter's bloodline, Luna felt as though she had been stabbed in the chest, her entire body trembling as she thought about bringing a child into the world who might inherit the same destructive impulses that had made Sheila a danger to everyone around her, and the thought consumed her, it sickened her, it crushed her, and in that moment she realized that no matter how much she had tried to convince herself that her pregnancy could be the miracle that fixed everything, the shocking truth Finn had revealed was that this baby could very well be a ticking time bomb, a legacy of chaos that would ruin not only her life, but Will Spencer's, Bill's, Lee's, and every person unlucky enough to be caught in its orbit. And Finn didn't sugarcoat it, he didn't try to cushion the blow, because he believed Luna needed to hear it straight. He believed she had to understand the truth before it was too late, and while she stared at him, her eyes filling with tears that burned as they slid down her cheeks, her hands clutching at her stomach as though to protect the child who suddenly felt less like a blessing and more like a storm brewing inside her, Luna whispered broken words, words that carried both disbelief and despair, and she begged Finn to tell her he was wrong, to tell her there was another explanation, but he couldn't, because Finn had seen the medical reports, he had studied the data, he had pieced together the family history, and what he found terrified him, and so he stood firm, telling Luna that bringing this child into the world would not only be unfair to the baby but dangerous to everyone else, and that was the moment Luna made her decision, a decision that would alter her life forever, because she couldn't bear the thought of raising a child who might inherit the same horrors that Sheila had inflicted upon countless lives. She couldn't risk passing down the kind of pain that had torn Finn's own world apart, and so with tears streaming down her face and her heart breaking in a way she didn't think possible, she looked Finn in the eye and told him she couldn't do it, she couldn't go through with the pregnancy, she couldn't take that risk, and within hours, in a blur of paperwork, whispered conversations, and trembling hands, Luna found herself in a sterile room, the white walls closing in on her as she signed the consent forms, her mind reeling with Finn's words on repeat, her chest aching with the knowledge that she was ending not just a pregnancy but a dream, and yet at the same time she felt a strange numbness creeping in, a protective shield against the unbearable grief, because somewhere deep down, she knew that this was the only way to protect herself, the only way to protect Will, the only way to prevent Sheila's shadow from extending into another generation. And as the procedure began, Luna squeezed her eyes shut, her tears spilling freely, her thoughts drifting to what might have been, the baby she would never hold, the family she would never build, the redemption she would never earn. And even though Finn stood by her side, his hand gripping hers tightly, assuring her that she was making the right choice, assuring her that she was brave, Luna still felt hollow, she still felt destroyed, she still felt like she had lost not only a child but a piece of herself. And in the aftermath, when it was all over, when she lay in that hospital bed staring at the ceiling with an emptiness in her soul that no words could ever truly capture, Luna knew that this was a turning point in her life, one that would haunt her forever, because Finn's shocking truth had forced her to confront a reality she never wanted to face, and in making the choice to end her pregnancy immediately, she had not only protected the world from Sheila Carter's legacy but also sacrificed the one chance she thought she had at proving she was more than her mistakes, more than her mother Poppy's scandals, more than the outsider label that had clung to her since the day she stepped into Los Angeles. And now, as the dust settled and the silence pressed in around her, Luna was left with nothing but grief, guilt, and the terrifying uncertainty of what came next, because though she had ended the pregnancy, she couldn't escape the consequences, she couldn't undo the heartbreak, and she couldn't silence the voice in her head whispering that maybe, just maybe, Finn's shocking truth had saved her, but it had also destroyed her in ways she would never fully recover from. The silence after the procedure was deafening, and yet inside Luna's mind it was anything but quiet, because every second replayed in slow motion. Every word Finn had spoken continued to echo like a merciless bell that would not stop tolling, and though her body lay still on the hospital bed with the white sheets pulled up over her trembling frame, her heart was pounding so violently she feared it might break through her chest, and Finn, though steady on the outside, was unraveling on the inside too, because as a doctor he had delivered countless truths about illness, about loss, about limited options and irreversible outcomes, but never before had he had to look into the eyes of someone he cared about and strip away their hope in such a brutal, irreversible way. And while he stood at Luna's side watching her face crumple under the weight of reality, a part of him hated himself for being the messenger, but another part knew that he could not live with himself if he had kept the truth hidden, if he had allowed her to carry a child into the world without knowing the darkness it could bring. And though he had framed it clinically at first, speaking of medical histories, genetic predispositions, patterns of behavior inherited across generations, the truth of it wasn't science to Luna, it was terror, it was destiny, it was a prophecy of doom she could not unhear. And as she thought of Sheila Carter, the woman who had haunted Finn's life, the woman who had already poisoned the world with her chaos, her mind conjured memories she wished she could forget, memories of Sheila's menacing smile, her piercing eyes, her laughter that never sounded joyous but always sinister. And Luna imagined that same shadow stretching forward into the life of an innocent baby, her baby, and the guilt crushed her to the core, because she realized she could not allow that to happen. She could not be the vessel that carried Sheila's nightmare into another generation. And so even as her heart screamed for another choice, even as her maternal instinct begged her to protect the fragile life inside her, she made the decision with a clarity that surprised even her, telling Finn that she would end the pregnancy, telling him she could not risk unleashing another Sheila into the world. And though Finn nodded, though he promised her it was the right choice, he felt the heavy sting of his own words, because he had forced her hand, he had pushed her into a corner where the only way out was to give up something she thought might save her. And as the hospital staff quietly moved through the room, preparing her for the procedure, Luna felt a strange detachment, as though she were watching it all from above, as though the real her had floated outside her body to avoid the unbearable pain. But every now and then reality would jolt her back, the sound of a pen scratching across a consent form, the sterile snap of latex gloves, the dim hum of medical machines, all of it reminding her that this was real, this was happening. And when it was done, when the room cleared and only Finn remained by her side, she wanted to scream, she wanted to collapse into hysterics, but instead she just lay still, her face streaked with silent tears, her hands clutching at the sheets as though gripping them tightly enough might stop her from falling into the abyss of despair that yawned beneath her. And Finn, though his heart ached, could only whisper reassurances, could only tell her she was brave, could only remind her that she had chosen protection over destruction. But Luna didn't feel brave. She didn't feel like a protector, she felt like a murderer of hope, and though she knew her decision was made for the greater good, she could not escape the sense of failure that wrapped around her like a shroud. And later, when Bill Spencer stormed into the hospital after hearing whispers of what had happened, his anger was volcanic, his voice booming as he demanded to know what Finn had told Luna to make her do such a thing, his blue eyes wild with fury, because Bill Spencer was many things. Ruthless, controlling, volatile, but he was also a man who hated losing, and in his eyes this abortion was a loss of epic proportions, a loss of legacy, a loss of power, a loss of the one chance he believed might have tied Luna to his family in a way he could control. And when he rounded on Finn, jabbing his finger into his chest, accusing him of manipulation, of brainwashing, of deliberately destroying the Spencer bloodline, Finn didn't flinch. Finn stood firm, repeating that the truth had to be told, that Luna had the right to know the risks before making her decision. And Bill raged back, declaring that Finn had poisoned her mind. But even through Bill's storm, Luna found the strength to speak, her voice hoarse, trembling, but resolute, telling Bill that this had been her choice, that she could not bring Sheila's legacy into the world. And as those words left her lips, Katie Logan, who had been standing just inside the doorway with her arms wrapped around herself, closed her eyes. with a pained expression, because though she wanted to comfort Luna, though she wanted to soften Bill's rage, she also knew the depth of what Luna had lost, and her own maternal heart broke for her, while Lee Finnegan, who appeared moments later, listened in silence, her face an unreadable mask, though inside she was grappling with a mixture of vindication and sorrow, because Lee had never wanted Luna with Will, she had never trusted her. She had fought to keep her out of the family, and yet even she could not fully rejoice in this outcome, because as a doctor she understood what it meant to give up a child, and as a woman she understood what it meant to lose something so personal, and when she finally spoke, her words were sharp but strangely protective, telling Bill to back off, telling him this wasn't about him, this was about Luna's body, Luna's choice, Luna's right to protect herself from a future she could not bear, and Bill, though still fuming, recognized in that moment that the room was aligned against him, that no amount of shouting would change what had already been done, and he stormed out with a final glare, leaving Luna to crumble into tears against Finn's chest, whispering over and over that she hadn't wanted it this way, that she had wanted to be a mother, that she had wanted to give Will something pure and good, but Finn held her and told her she had spared them all from a greater pain, and yet even as he said it, even as he believed it logically, he knew the emotional scars of this decision would cut so deep into Luna that no amount of reasoning could ever fully heal them, and across town, when Will Spencer eventually learned the truth, when Katie sat him down gently and told him that Luna had been pregnant but had ended it immediately after hearing something from Finn, Will's face went white, his eyes wide with disbelief, because though he was young, though he had been caught in the messy games of adults far too often, he had secretly allowed himself to imagine being a father, to imagine holding a baby, to imagine starting a family of his own despite his youth, and now that possibility had been ripped away before it even began, and his heart, already fragile from the chaos around him, cracked even deeper, leaving him reeling with pain, confusion, and a growing resentment toward Finn, toward his father, toward the entire situation that had once again left him powerless, and in the days that followed, as Luna tried to pick herself up, as she tried to face the reality of what she had done, she found herself haunted by nightmares of the baby she would never hold, of Sheila's shadow laughing in the corners of her mind, and though Finn stayed close, though he tried to remind her daily that she had made the only choice she could have, Luna knew that this decision had carved a scar across her soul, a scar that would never fade, a scar that would define her forever as the woman who had chosen to end her pregnancy not because she didn't want love, not because she didn't want redemption, but because she had been forced to face a truth so shocking it made carrying that child impossible, and in that truth lay the tragedy of it all, because Luna, once desperate to prove she could be more than her mistakes, had instead been left with nothing but grief, regret, and the hollow echo of the child who never had the chance to exist, and as Luna lay there in the days following, drifting between waking and restless sleep, the weight of what she had done pressed harder and harder against her chest, because though Finn had been steady in reminding her that she had saved herself, saved Will, saved everyone from the possibility of another Sheila Carter being unleashed into the world, Luna could not silence the relentless ache that came from losing something that was once inside her, something she had already whispered to in the quiet of her bedroom when no one was around, something she had already daydreamed about, naming, dressing, rocking to sleep, something she had imagined with Will's mischievous smile and her own soft features, a child she had believed would finally be her redemption story, her chance to prove that she was more than the girl who made mistakes, more than the woman whose mother Poppy had raised her with equal parts freedom and recklessness, more than the outsider who had stumbled into the Forrester Spencer Logan orbit with too many secrets to ever be fully trusted, and now those dreams were gone, stolen not only by Finn's truth but also by the history she had never asked to inherit, a history written in Sheila Carter's blood, and when Luna thought back to her mother, to the nights when Poppy had cried herself to sleep because she felt like she had failed, to the times when Poppy had lectured her about choosing carefully who she loved, Luna realized that all along she had been chasing something fragile, something her mother had never been able to secure herself, and that made the pain cut even deeper, because Luna felt as though she had failed in exactly the same way, passing along nothing but heartbreak instead of hope, and when she closed her eyes at night, she saw flashes of what could have been a nursery with soft pastel walls, Will nervously holding a swaddled newborn, Bill, begrudging yet proud, cradling his grandchild, evenly standing stiff but allowing herself the smallest of smiles. But those images would shatter into sharp fragments as soon as she remembered Finn's words, as soon as she heard again in her mind the way he had said that this child might inherit Sheila's darkness, that this baby might be born carrying a curse that no love, no discipline, no environment could erase, and then the warmth of her daydreams would turn to ice, and she would curl into herself on the hospital bed or the couch at Bill's mansion, silently sobbing so no one else could hear, because grief mixed with shame is the heaviest burden of all, and Luna carried it every second, and yet outside her cocoon of pain, the world kept moving, reactions kept spreading, whispers of her decision reached every corner of the family web, and when Sheila Carter herself finally caught wind of what had happened, her reaction was as unpredictable and dangerous as anyone could have expected, because at first Sheila laughed, a laugh sharp and cruel, dismissing it as cowardice, muttering that Luna had proven herself weak, that Finn had gotten to her just as he had gotten to so many others, twisting her narrative to make herself the victim as she always did, insisting that Luna had robbed the world of a child who could have been powerful, who could have been Sheila's true heir. But then, when she was alone, when the mask slipped, Sheila's laughter turned into something else, something raw and guttural, because even she could not ignore the sting of her bloodline being denied continuation, and she paced her dimly lit apartment like a caged animal, her claws itching to strike, her mind already spinning with schemes, because Sheila Carter never let go of what she considered hers, and though she had no real claim over Luna's child, she still felt robbed, still felt violated by the idea that Finn had stood in the way of her legacy, and she vowed that Luna would pay for what she had done, that Finn would pay even more, and that Will, sweet naive Will, would be drawn deeper into her web whether anyone liked it or not, because Sheila could not stand being erased, and in her twisted mind, that abortion had been an attempt to erase her completely, to cut her bloodline off at the knees, and that was unforgivable. So while Luna wrestled with shame, while Finn tried to keep her steady, while Bill fumed and Will quietly broke, a new storm was brewing in the shadows, one that would make Luna's decision not just a tragic loss but a dangerous catalyst for Sheila's next wave of destruction, and yet Luna didn't know that yet. All she knew was the hollow ache in her stomach, the feeling that she had crossed a line that left her forever changed, and she carried herself through the halls of Spencer Publications in the Forrester estate with her head slightly bowed, her once bright spirit dimmed, her eyes carrying a sadness that no one could miss, and while Katie tried to comfort her, while Lee tried to mask her conflicted respect with cutting words, while Will avoided her altogether because the pain of facing her was too much, Luna realized that she was now a ghost in her own life, haunted not by the child she had but by the child she would never know, haunted by Finn's shocking truth that had forced her to choose safety over love, haunted by Sheila's looming shadow that she could never truly escape, and haunted by the question that would follow her forever: had she really saved the world from Sheila's legacy, or had she simply destroyed her own soul in the process?